I'm Ava Mitchell, and this is the tale of how I discovered that, at times, family can be your greatest adversary, especially in business. For a decade, I dedicated my heart and soul to our modest, family run tech company, turning it from a struggling startup into a $50 million enterprise. But success has a way of revealing the darkest sides of people, even those who are supposed to stand by you. I remember when it all started, back when our family business was nothing more than a tiny computer repair shop in a strip mall, barely scraping by. My father had founded it 2 decades earlier, and despite its hardships, it was his greatest pride. My sister Lauren was always the shining star, straight A's, an elite business school education, and of course, Dad's favorite. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, the one who stayed behind to help him while pursuing a computer science degree at a nearby college. Ava, you're wasting your potential here, Lauren would often say during her visits home. You should set your sights higher. But I saw something in that little shop that no one else did: possibility. While Lauren was off studying theoretical business strategies, I was immersed in the real world. I was coding, repairing systems, and identifying market gaps others overlooked. During my final year of college, I developed our first proprietary software, a straightforward yet efficient inventory management tool tailored for small businesses. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was affordable, intuitive, and met a genuine need. At first, Dad was doubtful, but when local businesses started purchasing licenses, his attitude shifted. Maybe you're onto something here, kiddo, he said, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of pride in his eyes. That moment meant everything to me, if only I had known how fleeting it would be. Under my leadership, the company started to thrive. I worked 14-hour days, 7 days a week, pouring every ounce of energy into our success. While Lauren climbed the corporate ladder at a prestigious consulting firm in New York, I was building something tangible. Our tiny repair shop evolved into a full-fledged software development firm, expanding from local clients to national corporations. My mother watched with quiet concern. "Don't work yourself into the ground, Ava," she'd say, bringing me dinner at the office. "You need a life beyond this." But I couldn't slow down. Maybe part of me was still chasing validation, or maybe I just wanted to prove I could create something of my own. 5 years into our transformation, we hit our first million in annual revenue. That's when Lauren suddenly developed an interest in the family business again. She resigned from her high-profile job and moved back home. At a family dinner, she made her grand announcement. "I think it's time I take my rightful place in the company," she declared, radiating her signature confidence. "With my business expertise, we could scale this to new heights." Dad practically lit up. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. We could use your professional touch around here." I sat there, my fork hovering midair, trying to process what was unfolding. The company I had built from nothing was now being handed to Lauren as if it were some kind of inheritance. I swallowed my objections and played along. Lauren was appointed co-CEO, despite having zero experience in our industry. Dad insisted it would enhance the company's reputation to have someone with her credentials at the helm. So, while I continued overseeing product development and operations, she took charge of marketing and investor relations. Over the next 5 years, our company flourished. But so did the tension. I kept innovating, developing software, and strengthening client relationships. Meanwhile, Lauren cultivated an image of herself as the company's public face. She delivered speeches about being a woman in tech, accepted awards for entrepreneurship, and took credit for innovations she had no hand in creating. Our revenue soared to $50 million. So did the power struggle. Lauren began excluding me from crucial meetings, making unilateral decisions, and gradually pushing me to the periphery of my own creation. Then came Dad's 60th birthday party, the night that changed everything. Of course, the event was Lauren's idea. She rented out the grand ballroom of the city's most luxurious hotel and invited all our business associates. It wasn't really a birthday party. It was a networking event disguised as one. But that was Lauren's style. Everything had to serve a purpose. I arrived early to help with the preparations, dressed in a simple black dress. The moment Lauren spotted me, she gave me that all-too-familiar disapproving look. "Couldn't you have put in more effort?" she whispered sharply. "These are important people, Ava." I ignored her and focused on greeting guests. The room quickly filled with executives, investors, and longtime family friends. Lauren worked the crowd like a seasoned politician, shaking hands and flashing her meticulously rehearsed smile. As always, I stayed behind the scenes, ensuring everything operated seamlessly. Dinner was served, and just as I began to unwind, Lauren tapped her glass, demanding attention. I anticipated the usual speech, a tribute to Dad, perhaps a few sentimental childhood anecdotes. Instead, she detonated a bomb that shattered everything. As we gather to celebrate Dad's 60th birthday, she started, her voice poised and authoritative, I believe it's time to announce some major changes at Mitchell Tech. My stomach clenched. Changes? The board has concluded that for the company to thrive, it needs unified leadership, she continued, her words slicing through the room like a razor. Board meetings? What board meetings? For too long, we've been hindered by outdated perspectives and reluctance to evolve, Lauren pressed on, her gaze locking onto mine. Which is why, effective immediately, I will assume the role of sole CEO. It's time for certain outdated elements to step aside. A hushed murmur rippled through the gathering. I sat motionless, watching as Lauren carried out my public execution in front of our entire network. Some individuals, she added, her tone laced with feigned sympathy, are better suited for technical roles rather than leadership. She was talking about me, dismissing me. My sister Ava has done a sufficient job maintaining our legacy systems, Lauren continued. But in today's fast-paced industry, we need vision. We need innovation. And frankly, Ava, you're simply not equipped for this level of business. I turned to Dad. Say something. Defend me. But he merely nodded, a proud smile on his face. Mom, however, refused to meet my eyes. Her hands trembled slightly on the table. Lauren wasn't finished. The truth is, she declared, her voice rising for dramatic effect, Ava, you are obsolete in today's corporate world. Your outdated methods and lack of formal business education have become a liability. It's time for you to step down, gracefully. The silence was suffocating. 100 pairs of eyes fixated on me, anticipating my reaction. I could feel the pity, the silent judgment, the unspoken agreement with Lauren's words. Everything I had built, every late night, every sacrifice. It was all being stripped away in front of everyone. Slowly, I rose. The chair scraped against the floor, the sound cutting through the quiet like a gunshot. Everyone braced for a scene. Tears, an outburst, a desperate plea. Instead, I simply picked up my purse, walked to Dad's table, and placed a small wrapped box in front of him. Happy birthday, Dad, I said softly. Then, without another word, I turned and walked out, head held high, leaving behind the whispers, the stares, and the sister who believed she had won. That night, I sat in my home office, surrounded by awards and patents bearing my name. Lauren thought she had taken everything from me. She had overlooked one crucial detail, a detail that would turn her supposed victory into the greatest mistake of her life. As I powered up my laptop and began typing, a small smirk played on my lips. Tomorrow would be interesting. Because there is more than one way to run a successful business, and in 10 years, I had learned far more than Lauren had in all her prestigious business classes. The next morning, the sun rose bright and clear, and with it, everything was about to change. I arrived at the office early, before anyone else, and waited. At precisely 9 a.m., Lauren strode through the front doors, Dad at her side, both wearing triumphant smiles, smiles that were about to disappear. Ava? Lauren's voice carried a mix of irritation and disbelief. What are you doing here? I assumed after last night you'd have the dignity to stay away. I smiled, recalling the email I had sent at 3 a.m. to every major client, partner, and employee of Mitchell Tech. Just tying up a few loose ends, sister, I said. But since we're all here, we should probably discuss the company's future. There's nothing to discuss, Dad interjected, his tone firm. Lauren is in charge now. The board has already signed off on it. Ah, yes, the board, I said, retrieving my tablet. Let's talk about that. With a single tap, the conference room's main screen illuminated with a document. You see, while Lauren was busy attending galas and giving interviews, I was actually building this company. And there's something you both seem to have forgotten. I pulled up another document, zooming in for emphasis. First, let me remind you that I own 51% of Mitchell Tech's shares. Lauren's smug expression faltered. When we incorporated 10 years ago, Dad split the shares evenly, 25% each for Lauren and me, while retaining 50% for himself. But 3 years ago, when we needed capital for expansion, Dad sold me 6% of his shares. I turned to face him. Remember that day, Dad? You were too busy attending Lauren's award ceremony to handle the paperwork yourself, so you signed without reading the fine print. The color drained from their faces. Lauren's perfectly manicured nails dug into the conference table. That's impossible, she whispered. Dad would never. But he did. I interrupted, pulling up another document. And that's not all. I clicked again, and another screen flooded with legal documents. The core software that generates 80% of our revenue, it doesn't belong to Mitchell Tech. It's owned by my independent company, Innovate Solutions LLC. Mitchell Tech only had a licensing agreement, which, I checked my watch, expired about 10 minutes ago. Dad collapsed into a chair, realization dawning across his face. The renewal papers, he murmured. The ones you asked me to sign last week. The ones I didn't read because you were too busy helping Lauren plan the party, I finished for him. Yes, those papers. I decided not to submit them. Lauren's face twisted with fury. You conniving little... Careful, sister, I cut in smoothly. You might want to hear the rest before you finish that thought. I clicked again, and a flood of emails filled the screen. While you were busy celebrating my so-called graceful exit last night, I was notifying our clients. You see, most of our major contracts have personal loyalty clauses. They signed with Mitchell Tech because of me, my expertise, my reputation. Last night, I informed them of the leadership changes and my departure. I zoomed in, displaying dozens of responses from our top clients. Would you like to guess how many have already triggered their contract termination clauses? I tilted my head. Or how many of our lead developers, who, by the way, are employed by Innovate Solutions, not Mitchell Tech, have already accepted positions at my new venture? Silence. Through the glass walls, we could see employees gathering, hushed whispers spreading as they checked their emails. Lauren frantically pulled out her phone, her perfect composure cracking as she scrolled. You can't do this, she stammered. You mean I can't take back what's mine? I replied, calm and measured. You thought you could take over just because you have an MBA and Dad's approval? That you could humiliate me in front of everyone and face no consequences? I stood, smoothing my dress. So, here are your options. I let the weight of my words settle before continuing. Option 1, I walk away with my shares, my software, my clients, and my employees. Mitchell Tech becomes a hollow shell, and you can explain to all those important guests from last night why the company's value just plummeted to zero overnight. Dad looked like he had aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. And option 2? He asked weakly. Option 2, you both resign. I took a deep breath, meeting their stunned expressions with unwavering calm. I take full control of Mitchell Tech. You both keep your shares as silent partners, receiving dividends, but with no say in operations. Lauren gets a generous severance package and glowing references for her next job, somewhere far from here. Lauren's face turned an alarming shade of red. You planned this all along, didn't you? You were just waiting for the right moment to stab us in the back. I let out a short, humorless laugh. No, Lauren, I spent 10 years trying to be a good daughter, a good sister, and the entire time you both dismissed me, took me for granted. I built this company from the ground up while you collected accolades for my work. I checked my watch again. I only planned this about 12 hours ago, after you called me worthless in front of everyone we know. My phone buzzed. Another contract termination notice. Time's running out. What's it going to be? The next hour blurred with paperwork and lawyers. By noon, I sat alone in what was now my office, gazing out over the city. The company I had built was finally mine, but the victory felt hollow. Family ties lay in ruins around me, trust shattered like fragile glass. That evening, Mom came to see me, her eyes red from crying. Did it have to end this way? She asked softly. I met her gaze, my voice gentle but firm. They gave me no choice. They would have taken everything I built and discarded me without a second thought. She nodded slowly, understanding, but sorrowful. What happens now? I turned my laptop toward her, showing the plans I had already drawn up. Expansions, new product lines, innovations I had been holding back. Now, I exhaled, feeling lighter than I had in years. I build something even bigger. But this time, I do it without carrying people who see me as worthless. 1 year later, under my sole leadership, Mitchell Tech tripled in value. Lauren found a job with a Silicon Valley startup, humbled but hopefully wiser. Dad retired, finally realizing that his golden child had nearly destroyed his legacy. We see each other at holidays. Polite distance masks wounds that may never fully heal. Sometimes, late at night, I browse through old family photos and feel a pang of sorrow for all that was lost. But then, I recall that night at the birthday party, the contempt in Lauren's expression, the way Dad nodded along as she spoke her harsh words. And I remind myself, in both business and family, respect isn't handed out freely. It must be earned. They realized that lesson too late. My story became a whispered warning in business circles, a tale of what happens when you misjudge the wrong person. At industry events, I often catch murmurs. That's Ava Mitchell, the one who... They never finish the sentence. They don't have to. My achievements say enough. Last week, I received an invitation to deliver a speech at Lauren's business school graduation. The theme? Hidden Strengths, the Power of Underestimated Leaders. I accepted with a quiet smirk, already crafting my words. After all, I have quite the story to share. The company continues to flourish under my leadership. But more importantly, I've made peace with my choices. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is proving people wrong. And sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't about tearing others down. It's about rising so high that they're forced to confront their own mistakes. As I sit in my office, gazing out over the city's skyline, I recall something my mother once told me. Success is the best revenge, but wisdom is knowing when to let go of revenge and focus on growth instead. She was right. I've moved beyond retribution. These days, my energy is spent on creating something lasting, something far more significant than petty rivalries and family disputes. I still have that unopened birthday gift I never gave my father, a photo album documenting the company's evolution from a tiny repair shop to what it is today. Perhaps one day, when enough time has softened the wounds, I'll finally hand it to him. Until then, it remains on my shelf, a silent reminder that our greatest strengths often emerge from the very qualities others fail to see in us.